Welcome to the Good Leader Podcast. I'm your host, John Martinez, and I'm with my co-host, Dr. Dave motherfucking Miller.
That's
We're
the
back
rumor.
again. And our topic today is going to be the shadow you avoid. It's about Carl Jung. Miguel, go ahead and throw in the intro right there. Let's get to it. This guy I like his philosophy when it comes to thinking about stuff like you're kind of saying right now, breaking down, Dave. It's more about coming to peace with different terms of yourself, like the good and the bad, and I think controlling it or mastering it rather than saying, "Oh, I never get annoyed, I never get mad, I never get tempted," and that's like when you do that, it's almost like more like not acknowledging a part of yourself, and I think that's kind of his overall theory, right? When you don't acknowledge yourself, then you basically can't control yourself.
Right. It basically kind of his sort of approach to like psychology is all around your own personal agency.
Yeah.
In everything that happens in your life. It's like you can affect change.
Yeah.
Within yourself. Whereas the other school of thought, as I was saying, was like Sigmund Freud.
Yeah.
Is all clinical. Everything's a diagnosis. You have this freaking condition. That's it.
Yeah.
And it's a framework that has done a lot of damage, in society. I mean, because we shifted at some point from a moralistic type of language where it's like, oh, so yeah, you may be dealing with some issues, but it's like, oh, so you need to take care of it. There's work that you have to put in to do it. Whereas like now you've got, you've got some kind of diagnosis, you got ADHD, you're schizophrenic, you're whatever, all this sort of stuff. And then that's what you are. And it just puts up a wall. So it's like a barrier that now nobody is allowed to cross. And then it also, it gets used as like a shield. People will use it as an excuse for their behavior. So I can't do anything about it, man. I got PTSD. Screw you. All that, whatever. So it's like the moralistic side of it is like, it's dealing with your own personal demons and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, you do have agency in your life. Whereas the clinical side of it is it removes the agency altogether. You can't do anything about it. It's just what you are.
Yeah, I like the way that you kind of frame that, because I think that too. I think a lot of people, this is my personal opinion, they self-diagnose themselves. They think they have something, and then they start meeting. They're like, well, I suffer from extreme anxiety because I get nervous before I do something that I'm not used to doing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you probably get a little bit of anxiety and you're probably just uncomfortable, like all of us get. But now that becomes your go-to every time something happens, like, I got anxiety, or, you know what I mean? Or I have insomnia because I drink a cup of coffee before I go to bed and I can't go to sleep. So I think I'm suffering from also insomnia. It's like, and I believe they start manifesting those things. I think there's studies that already have shown that what you think you can physically feel, like, like when you think that you have something and you believe it. I think the big part of it is not just thinking it, but like wholeheartedly believing it. Then you basically start manifesting those symptoms to yourself. And I'm not saying that that's always true. Some people probably have extreme cases or cases where it's actually that's how they are. But I think, like you said, the exposure to like so much information on social media that people now see things. Oh, dang, I must have that. I must have this. I must have that. Yeah.
I saw a statistic the other day where it's like, say in like say cases like, ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if there was a poll that was taken, it's like it's something like 25% of like Americans, like are convinced, they have like ADHD, whereas like the actual number is something like 6%.
Yeah.
But it's like, people, they're get on the Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and you got all these freaking, social media for, professionals tell you, well, if you got signs of this and this and this, well, you obviously got this, there you go,
You must have it.
yeah. And there is something to the psychological factor of being able to actually convince yourself of something, and your mind can actually turn that into reality if you believe it hard enough.
No, I believe it. And I think that's why it was kind of when I heard the topic, yeah, I was like, oh, this is something for, good for us to talk about, because I think a lot of it, the notes I wrote down for it was, people hide behind their social media profiles, or they'll hide behind fake confidence or distractions and anger. And then they can also be hiding behind addictions like drinking. It's like when someone says, I can't be fun if I don't know how to drink, or if I don't have a drink. It's like, I can go out and be myself and I not even have one drink. They drink
Right.
water the whole night and be fine. But I mean, people are like, oh, I can't relax. I can't, everything is based off of them
Right.
drinking because I think they become a funner person.
Right. Right.
And it's like, it's like, and kind of, but then where that became manifest into something more negative down the road because now they don't know how to just have fun without that that enabling them to have fun.
Yeah, this is how I relax.
Yeah.
When like really, no, this is how you anesthetize yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
There's a difference. you know,
And I like that Carl Jung wrote, believed that dark or uncomfortable parts of yourself don't disappear just because you ignore them, that they wait and then eventually show up through anxiety, resentment, burnout, ego, depression, addiction, or self-destruction. So I think that's pretty. I want to say that's cool. I was gonna say, it almost seems like the more you, I guess, like don't acknowledge parts of yourself, it's almost like they can become somewhat dormant but stronger at the same time. Like when they do finally manifest, and I think I see that just a lot in when you see these acts that people commit, like these crowd. Like why does that happen? Like I was watching, it was showing a couple that had committed a crime and just like, well, I just felt like doing it. Like all of a sudden I just started thinking about it and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, and like, how do you just start thinking about, hurting people or hurting with no real context behind it? You just one day you just felt like,
yeah, the voices told me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot with like, with suppression of like, say the demons that you're dealing with, and then there's also just excusing them,
Yeah.
And again, it comes down to, the approach of like, the societal structure,
Yeah.
to where it's like, oh, so yeah, you don't have any control over it, as opposed to, yes, you do.
Yeah.
You need to work on this.
So it takes away that accountability piece for them.
It becomes the point where it's like, the people that you actually, maybe reach out to because you're having an issue or whatever, they remove, the notion of telling you that you're wrong, and yeah, this is wrong, it now becomes, yeah, it's just what it is.
When he said
It's
that,
just what it is.
it made me think of a funny one because so Alexa's doing her series on social media about guys and girls, and
I still got to look this up, man, because this fascinates me.
and she did one, and it was more about like, well, sometimes girls don't know what they want because I don't know, never been in that space to kind of know what they want or weren't allowed to. I don't know what it was. I kind of remember the way she framed it. And I wanted to wait till I see her to tell her about it. It's like, well, if they don't know what we want, no guy's gonna know what they want either. Like we're just, it doesn't matter. Like, well, you can't lead a horse to water, basically, idea. And that's the thing people don't realize as men, right? Like, we have to know what we want because and what we're expecting and how we're trying to lead ourselves. Because I don't think any of us expect a girl to say, well, she's gonna tell me something and that's gonna make me now understand what I want from it. You know what I mean? Like you can show them things that they may like about you, but it's a whole about not knowing yourself. And I think that's kind of what this is too, like acknowledging the good and bad parts of yourself and accepting that accountability part and not just saying, well, this is just how I am, because I think that takes away a lot of, there's no room to grow from there because you're basically saying, this is how I am. There is no changing me.
Yeah.
Accept me or don't accept me. And you're like, you're not a, what does it say? We're not trees. We're not stationary beings that can't grow. We have minds. We're allowed to grow. We're allowed to learn, to think and evolve. But when you kind of talk to yourself and say, oh, this is where I'm at, then you're forever kind of, I guess you're kind of just stay in that place.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there's another sort of twist to like, there's somebody not knowing what they want or whether I think that a lot of times it's unrealistic expectations. Is what it is. It's like, so I want everything to be a particular way, and even though I can't even like express it at any one single point, I'm going to make it up as I go, and just because there's something I don't like means I don't want it, and it's like, yeah, but nobody fits the static mold that you're just inventing every step of the way, so it's like there's got to be a level of acceptance. It's like, look, what can I take, and what can I find value in that may not necessarily be in my lane right now.
Yeah, and there's that counterbalance of, I think, not only with yourself, right, but it's also in your relationships. Because if you can admit to yourself, say, like for me, when I notice I'm not getting something done that I'm like, okay, I need to start adjusting things. Like maybe I need to wake up I know myself enough to know like, well, maybe I need to wake up a half an hour earlier, or I'll start doing little things at a time. Like today I was trying to go through some paperwork. So I'm like, I need to go through at least this many papers, and I did it again. It didn't take me a long time, but I know how I am. I know how my brain kind of thinks like, okay, I got to like ease myself into it and then start doing it and get more into it. So I've kind of learned that about myself. So it's not hard when you see other people and they're like, well, I don't know how to start or stop doing this, when it's like, well, because you're kind of just you think if you think about it enough it'll happen, but you really have to take some kind of action to kind of to start getting there, even if it's just little steps along the way. You know what I mean? Like they said, what do they say about the gym? It's like, if you haven't been to the gym in a while, just go to the gym, walk on the treadmill for like 15-20 minutes, and then go home. And that's the first step. You know what I mean? Do that for a week or 2 weeks and say, okay, now I'm going to the gym. Okay, now I'm there. Now, hey, no, maybe I must stay. Now I must do weights. Maybe I'm going to add to someone. And it's kind of that. And I think a lot of people just think about it. They just like, I was going to post this quote, and I forgot to do it. Like,
kind of like I don't want to join the gym because there's buff guys in there.
Yeah. And that's a true story.
Yeah, exactly.
They've said that
happened here.
Yeah. They didn't want to, we'll say the person didn't want to, the person wanted to join this gym, but then their partner didn't want them to join because there was too many buff guys here. So
yeah. Exactly.
So weird. I know that's a whole thing.
Yeah. But then there's the whole idea of preconceived notions.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think, you can march into any situation, really kind of dictating terms of like, with the people you deal with, situations you walk into,
especially
you're going to get slapped in the face more often than not.
Especially if you don't know what you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then that's like, I think like that's kind of and I know Alexa will probably join us again to talk to her about that. It's like, even if a girl or guy doesn't know what they want, right? Like, then what terms can you really dictate? Because you don't really know what and then it goes back to where it's like, hey, if you don't know what you want, or you don't know what issues you're having within yourself or how to control them. So, but now you're trying to also control things outside of you when you can't even control things internally.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, you could probably come up with like a list of kind of like wants and kind of like a general term. But but when it comes to like say interpersonal relationships, I mean, it's like I mean, there used to be a thing called courtship, dude.
Yeah.
It's where it's like you actually took time, you go out, you do things, all that sort of stuff. You get to know the person, to feel out like how they are before you like jump into like a commitment or whatever like that, and you kind of negotiate this relationship as a matter of like, and you learn as much about yourself as you do about the person across from you, because just like, I'll say, okay, well, this is how I am, that, and these are the holes that this person fills in, that they kind of make me a little bit more complete, or it gives it a balanced side, and it's a process of figuring it out. It's not a standard that you can just set off the bat, And
that's why I hate that term. Then I know a lot of girls use it, protect my peace. And then my whole thing is, well, you can't fix things when you're not willing to confront them, because it's not going to always be a peaceful thing, right? Like if you're a person who's, I guess in relationships, like you don't know well, or you when you have a conversation, you may get overly, fucking like amped up about it, right? So like the only way to really deal with that is to learn, have those, either know like in an argument, like, hey, this is where I need to like stop, or to be able to be in that position, and your partner say, hey, remember, this is what we talked about, you need to work, bringing it back down, right? And it has to almost happen. It's like a fight, right? Like like it's like you can train so much, but you actually have to put it to action. And I saw this one funny, it was like a thing where I think Grub was like, I protected my peace so much, I just have my cats.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's what it is. It's like you have your peace, but also there is a point to be made that sometimes you need confrontation, or maybe, you know what I mean?
Right.
To confront those things. And I think that's where it goes back to the Carl Jung thing about the shadows you avoid. Like, hey, maybe sometimes you may have to you're going to have to deep dive with those things with yourself.
Yeah.
And at some point you're going to have to deep dive with those things with your partner or your friends or your family, or if not, they're going to constantly become issues. Because we know like how it is when you're around someone who can't deal with themselves, and eventually it starts spilling over into their attitude day to day. After a while, you start losing like sympathy and empathy for them, and you're just like, okay, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, this is
it's becoming the same old thing.
It's the same old pattern of behavior. You're doing the same thing. You're not doing anything about it. So you start losing, sympathy. As guys, we're sympathetic to a point, but at a certain point, you're just like, this dude is, you need to approach it different.
Yeah. Well, I think also as guys, I mean, we start to like kind of transition to like just the full on kind of like analytical sort of side. It's like we start to remove emotion from it.
He's the weakest in our tribe.
And we just start going, okay, so what is it? What is this really accomplishing? What is the value here? What is where it's like it's not even like about whether I care or not. That just becomes not a factor. It just becomes like a logical kind of deduction. It's like, oh, so this is not serving a purpose. It needs to get cut out.
And I think with guys, we see other guys that act like that continually, not once or twice as liabilities, right? Because you're kind of like,
because they're a bitch.
Yeah, because you're like, you're kind of like, well, if everything, I can't count on you, and now you're kind of showing that, and everything kind of seems to throw you off course. Then it's like at some point you're like, damn, like you become almost looked at as being maybe unreliable, or not someone that to count on when things get hard, because now you're going to, and if you're having issues, because that comes back to the whole thing, who asks the strong ones if they're okay, right? Because not only when you're the strong one, you also want guys around you that if you're not feeling a way, like you never really talk about if anything's bugging you or anything like that. So if you ever told me something, I would take it more serious, because I'd be like, oh, Dave, something must be bugging him, if something. Where if someone who does it all the time, you're just like, oh, just shut the fuck up,
It is kind of like the inverse of the way you may want it to go. It's like the guy who always shows up, is always on, all that sort of stuff. Maybe actually be like the guy that you need to check in on, like a little bit more than the dude who's flying off the handle, let his motions run the game. All this, well, I feel this way, and it's like, oh, sir, we get it. We know how you feel. It's like, oh, sir, so now what part are you going to play in fixing it? But it's the one that, they just kind of grinds, and suffers quietly, so you check on that guy every day, man,
And then I like the term, it says becoming whole, not perfect. And then growth comes from integrating both strength and vulnerability instead of pretending that one side doesn't exist. And I think for me personally, I think that's where I think my daughters help me with that, because I think as guys, sometimes you're just more, it's not like you're trying to, I don't think I'm ever just like a hard or mean person, but to me, there's a side probably with them where you learn to be more like affectionate or lovable or in that way. And I think girls can also bring that out in you, but you also have to feel like that's what they bring out in you. That's where I guess it comes back to not being combative or, things like that, and having that good rapport with them. And then that's a whole different probably conversation we'll probably have with Alexa and her series.
It does spark like a good thought, like the way that's phrased. Is becoming whole, not perfect. And it does actually really kind of bring up the reality is actually part of being whole is understanding that you're still a work in progress. It's like he'll say, you're not an end product yet. Every day something else is going to happen where you're going to have to shift, move, improvise, and adapt. Possibly change your perceptions on things. Because it's all a process that just never ends.
Yeah, that's what I put is some of the, the good points about that becoming whole, not perfect is the strength with self-control, confidence without ego, emotional intelligence without weakness, becoming reliable under pressure. It goes back to that part, learning restraint, which is important. I tell people that was one of the things that I always brought up, being in uniform, that when I was in uniform, I always turned off my emotions. I didn't want to be like a hothead or just to like lash out at people. You kind of learn to like keep it in a little bit, or learn to control it, I should say better.
Yeah.
And why balanced people are more rare now, because we do live in a society now where it's almost like it's, I used to tell people, if you don't want to see clowns, don't go to the circus. And that's a lot of people, what you see them doing. They're willing to do anything and everything for attention. You see it with these like streamers, you see it with certain like influencers, you see like anything, even within the community and space that me and you are involved in. There's some good men that are coming up now, the Peace Purpose podcast and some of the other people that I interact with. That's the reason I interact with them, because I like the way they move and they interact. But then you have other spaces where they're a little bit more just like all over the place. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I don't really, and it's not anything again. I get it. It gets views. I understand that. Like, hey, you get 2 views, you get attention, but eventually that energy, you see it, that negative energy comes back like a fucking tidal wave.
Right.
And now your energy that was going this way now is getting put, it just, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
and it's like, I don't know, to me, I don't find that entertaining for myself. I don't know about
Well, when some people actually become more about like the show rather than the
Yeah.
content,
Yeah.
then that ends up leaving a lot of other people swinging in a win.
Yeah.
And they're just in there watching, and it's like, oh, sir, yeah, well, I don't. Nobody's gotten to a point yet.
Yeah, it just starts,
know?
it starts canceling each other
You're
out.
sitting on the hood of a Lamborghini that you just rented for this photo shoot, but it's like, what does that do for me?
Yeah, it's like,
what am I getting out of this?
it says, well, some people, it's like that having to constantly validate, like, look at me, look how important I am, and that's that whole thing. If you look at really a lot of the stuff that we do, I mean, we all post things about ourselves a little bit here and there, but I think a lot of us, including with Miguel with his stuff, is always more about like the brand, trying to build the company, trying to build what they're doing, more than like, hey, fucking look at me. At a certain point, I wouldn't care
for
if the
all those haters.
yeah. It's like, I wouldn't, if the podcast ever got to a good point where it's like, hey, maybe one day you're hosting it, or Miguel's hosting it, and we did have guests, and we have, it's not really about the who's hosting the podcast. It's more about the message, and is the message still getting out, and then allowing us to do other things. Maybe I'm working on something else, or you're working on something else, or Miguel's, but we're still keeping everything kind of going, rather than being like, no, I'm the center of attention. Please look at me, guy. Like that's what a lot of guys have to do now. Everything is about them, and then they just want people to come along with the ride with them.
And it could get really hard maintaining, some kind of like, facade.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas like, when you first asked me to be on like the podcast, I mean, I'll tell you honestly, I mean, I was nervous as hell. I was like, what the hell am I going to talk? Just like, what do I know about being on a podcast? But then we decided it just became a conversation. It's just nothing but real.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I could be real.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah, that's the whole point of the podcast. It's like seeing to like with using you as an example of the podcast thing. It's like we already had done our episode, I think, and we had talked in different times, and I was like, oh, and I always like the way you kind of talk and explain things.
Yeah.
And so to me, I just look at that stuff. I guess because of the positions also that I've been in before, where it was like I was used to, hey, the watch commander and the team were doing good, and I know that, I know what I did to help them, but I wanted them to do good too. It wasn't really like, hey, let me go over there and see what you guys did. Like like my boy Mahia, he just did he doesn't post it on, he posted on social media, but he doesn't put it out where everyone can post it. But he got like a good, bust and things like that. When he does good, I like that, because he was someone that when I wasn't, in charge of when I was there, and he's doing real good. So to me, it's like, oh, him doing good is like, it's like, oh, damn, I did something right. You know what I mean? And something that, and it's about sharing everyone doing good, rather than saying, hey, I'm trying to get all the credit. We used to say this phrase where it's like, well, imagine what you could do if you don't care about the credit.
Yeah.
Like, imagine what could be done. And then a lot of people, but they want the credit. And sometimes when you look at because I look at a lot of other brands, what they say, some other brands it's really about them. And some other brands, you can't tell, it's not about them. You could tell it's just about the team or whatever. And to me, those are usually the stronger brands, or instead of being one person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things I always tried to work hard on is like effective communication.
Yeah.
And so when you actually have like, thoughts or subjects, topics that are of value that, you think somebody, could be able to get something out of this. A lot of people, don't respond to all the same types of communication. So it's like, just ways of using your words and all that sort of stuff, can get things across to people, if you're just honest about it.
Yeah, it's a authenticity. People can tell when you actually mean what you say, or you're just saying it or what do they call it? There's a term for, like, they do it on podcasts, like hot take. If I told Miguel, like, I'm gonna just say something controversial and clip that, I want you to like put it up. But to me, I just don't really see the point in that, because it just becomes, you just see, I think I've watched the cycle so many times of different podcasts where it just becomes those podcasts just end up like losing their luster after a while, right? Or they don't transition, and you realize it's like, if you look at they're not even good, our podcasters, in my opinion, but there's the guy Ebro and some other guy that used to be from Hot 97, right? So that platform gave them big access to everybody. It was just the biggest platform in New York. So, but they ended up getting pushed out of there, and now they're trying to do podcasts, and they have no audience.
Yeah.
It's because it's like what you said didn't really matter. You just were on a big enough platform where it seemed like it mattered, right? And then you see you see other guys like what's his name? His name is like Pigeon something. He's like a long-haired guy. He makes a kind of jokey videos or his analysis. He does it from his room, and he probably has a big ass audience. You know, I don't think people really care like what your platform on is. It's more about what you're saying, if they resonate with them and if they can kind of relate to it, or there's some value that they get from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, kind of on the topic, though, I mean, it's like, people will, put on facades, and masks and all that sort of stuff to hide maybe like, inadequacies they're feeling, with how they actually deal with their own reality, because if you can't face things in a functional, sort of way and be able to move forward, you just like suppress them or hide them or stuff like that, then it does actually end up becoming an identity crisis.
Yeah.
There's just who am I, man, that I can't get through this?
Yeah, and you have to be able to be flexible in that. And one of the biggest things that I get asked a lot from leaving from law enforcement is like, oh, do you miss it? And like it's the same as in the military. I'm like, well, yeah, there's parts of it that I miss or that I like. I said, but I also never let myself get so caught up in it that's all I believe that I was.
Right.
Or some people that is all that they are. Like if you take that from them, they'll have a very hard time convincing themselves to do anything else. They can't disassociate from it. It's like everything that they've been, everything that they know, everyone that they associate with it. And that's why I always made a point to like not just have friends in law enforcement or not just have friends in the military, to have friends everywhere, because that I wasn't just bottled into like, oh, this is the only people that I know and this is all I know. And if we're never a cop, how are we gonna be friends? You know,
right? You should be able to be more than just your occupation.
Yeah, and that helps me relate to a lot of people, which I think kind of goes back to our brand about different stuff about having. You don't have to have the same opinions as us. We can have different opinions as long as we can have a conversation about it and understand and where we're coming from, and then we could talk about things, and that makes communication. You know what I mean? And,
Absolutely.
And so I think that's a good thing. I also put like a recommendation for a book called "The King, the Warrior, Musician, and the Lover" by Robert Moore and Douglas. I think it's Gillette, like the razor. I haven't read this book myself, but it's I'm gonna check it out because I was looking up some good books about this, and it talks about basically how a man needs to be all those things, and if he's one more than the other, then he kind of will get like you said, kind of his identity crisis and not be able to tell what he is. So kind of it sounds cool, and then I think that I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I'm not reading a lot of books. I'm like listening to a lot of books.
Right.
I think I'm like
got time to be flipping pages, man.
I think when I got my last badge is the Mount Everest one. I think that's the books. But like this month, I already listened to like 3 different books. Like I literally listen to them like working out. Sometimes I can't even listen to fucking music anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Yeah.
Is there anything you want to put out for the gym?
Oh, again, I mean, we have Murph coming up for Memorial Day. So I was still taking signups for that, or at least trying to get like a head count of the people who are going to show up, either do the workout or at least be around for the barbecue.
I know people are just they're going to be like, oh, could we be here for the barbecue?
There are actually a lot of people that are going to be there, but I mean, that's fine. I mean, all I need is like a head count, because that's one of the important things. I need to know how much meat to get. So So if you're going to show up, come in, or get on our Instagram, scan the code, fill out the jot form, let us know you're coming, because I'd like to have like a pretty solid number this week.
Oh yeah. Miguel, you have any questions from Miguel's Corner? I don't know what we're going to call it. Miguel's Corner?
So what when you guys were talking about like the guy who keeps everything internally and the guy who doesn't keep anything internally, there's this one quote that I repeat in my head for both scenarios is what you don't change, you accept.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So whether you're quiet or not quiet, if you don't change anything to like progress in life, you're accepting it.
Again, I mean, it still comes down to your own agency in your life. It's not something that, is just going to be static that you can't do anything about. Yeah. And that also just takes a decision. Say, well, I need to do something about it. Now I need to figure out how. Now I, put it into action. So it's acceptance is a big thing first. you know, but then it's a decision towards action.
Yeah.
You know, and however you end up expressing it. I mean, yeah, sometimes like the loud one, you know, you want to just go, all right, we get it, you know, but especially if it's just like, if it's a bunch of talk and no action, you know, but yeah, the quiet ones, sometimes you might have to like coax it out of them a little bit more, you know, it's like, so what are you dealing with right now, dude? What are you know, what's going on?
Give them a push.
Yeah.
Positive push. All right. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you like, you subscribe, and you share it with somebody that needs it. And shout out to Gain Station Gym, as always, for letting us use the location.
Home of the Good Leader podcast.
Yes, sir. And then come out. You make sure you get a workout. You know, come and sign up. Even if your boyfriend or girlfriend tells you no.
Right. The buff guys here are actually really nice.
Yeah. And shout out to EZF Media, Miguel, for all your podcasts and porno and OnlyFans needs and Paso. And as always, stay dangerous and let's fucking go.
All right.